Maya Brooks stepped off the transport shuttle and felt her stomach drop. Station Epsilon 7 stretched out before her, like a small city floating in space. Metal towers reached up toward the stars, and bridges connected buildings that looked like they could house thousands of people. This was the Galactic Military Academy, and she was about to become one of only 3 humans ever accepted into its training program. Her boots clicked against the polished floor as she walked through the arrival terminal. Everywhere she looked, she saw aliens. Some had scales, some had fur, and some had bodies that seemed to shift and change as they moved. A few looked almost human, but most were completely different from anything she had seen before. They all towered over her. Even the smallest aliens stood at least a foot taller than her 5'6" frame. Maya pulled her duffel bag higher on her shoulder and followed the signs to the cadet registration center. 2 other humans waited there, both wearing the same nervous expression she probably had on her face. "Lieutenant Jake Morrison," the man said, extending his hand. He had short brown hair and looked like he spent most of his time in the gym. "Captain Lisa Hayes," the woman added. She was older, maybe 40, with gray streaks in her black hair. "You must be Brooks. We heard you were coming." Maya shook both their hands. "Nice to meet you. This place is incredible." "It's terrifying," Jake said with a weak laugh. "I saw a guy in the cafeteria who could probably eat me for breakfast. Literally." Lisa gave him a sharp look. "We need to represent humanity well here. No jokes about being eaten." Before Maya could respond, a deep voice echoed through the hall. "New cadets, form a line." They turned to see a massive creature entering the room. He stood at least 8 feet tall, with a body covered in dark blue armor that seemed to be part of his actual skin. His head was angular, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and his mouth had mandibles that clicked when he spoke. 2 extra arms folded against his sides, making 4 total. "I am Commander Vex Thor," the creature announced. His voice came through a translator device on his chest, but Maya could hear the clicking and buzzing underneath. "I will be your primary instructor for combat operations. You are now cadets of the Galactic Military Academy. Most of you will fail. Some of you will be injured. A few of you might die. Though, we try to prevent that." The room went silent. Maya counted about 30 cadets in total, representing maybe 15 different species. She, Jake, and Lisa were the only humans. Vex Thor's 4 eyes swept across the group, pausing when they reached the 3 humans. "Ah, yes, the humans. I was told to expect you." His mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Tell me, humans, what is your homeworld's gravity?" 1G, sir," Lisa answered, her voice steady. 1G, Vex Thor repeated. "And your atmosphere?" "Nitrogen and oxygen, sir. 21% oxygen." "Fragile," Vex Thor said flatly. "Your species requires very specific conditions to survive. You have no natural armor, no enhanced strength, no redundant organs. You are, by all measures, the weakest species in this room." Maya felt her jaw clench, but she kept quiet. Jake shifted uncomfortably beside her. "In 3 days," Vex Thor continued, addressing the whole group now, "you will face the gauntlet of attrition. This is a 72-hour endurance trial that tests everything you have learned and everything you are. You will face extreme gravity, hostile atmospheres, temperature shifts, and combat scenarios. Only the strongest complete it. Most do not even try." He moved closer to the humans, his footsteps heavy on the floor. "I have been an instructor here for 40 years. I have trained warriors from 70 different species. In all that time, no human has ever attempted the gauntlet. Do you know why?" "No, sir," Maya said, meeting his gaze. "Because humans cannot survive it. Your bodies are too weak. Your bones would shatter. Your organs would fail. It is not an insult, just a fact. You are welcome here as observers and support personnel, but you should not pretend to be warriors. Something hot flared in Maya's chest. She had spent 6 years in the Marines, fought in 2 border conflicts, and earned top marks in every physical test the military threw at her. She had competed against men twice her size and come out on top. And now, this alien, who had never met a human before today, was telling her she was too weak. With respect, sir, Maya said carefully. How do you know what humans can survive if none have tried? Vexithor's mandibles clicked rapidly. The other alien cadets turned to stare. Jake grabbed her arm, trying to pull her back, but she shook him off. You wish to attempt the gauntlet? Vexithor asked. Yes, sir. Maya, no, Lisa whispered urgently. Don't do this. Vexithor moved until he stood directly in front of Maya. He was so tall that she had to crane her neck to look up at him. I will tell you what will happen, human. In the first 6 hours, the gravity will break your legs. In 12 hours, the atmospheric toxins will burn your lungs. In 24 hours, if you somehow survive that long, your heart will fail from exhaustion. You will die alone in a training facility, and your species will be marked as too fragile for military service. Your pride will kill you and damage humanity's reputation in the process. Maya took a deep breath. Every logical part of her brain screamed at her to back down, to apologize, to be smart about this. But something deeper, something she had carried since childhood, refused to let her quit when someone said she could not do something. I understand the risks, sir. I still want to try. The room erupted in clicking, buzzing, and other alien sounds of surprise. Vexithor stared at her for a long moment. Then, he stepped back. Very well, Lieutenant Brooks. You will attempt the gauntlet in 3 days. I will personally oversee your trial. When you fail, and you will fail, I want you to understand that I warned you. Yes, sir, Maya said. Vexithor dismissed the group, and the cadets filed out, many of them looking back at Maya with what might have been pity or curiosity, or both. Jake and Lisa pulled her aside as soon as they were in the hallway. Are you insane? Jake asked. He just told you that you'll die. He told me I can't do it, Maya corrected. That's different. Lisa rubbed her temples. Maya, listen to me. I've read the reports on the gauntlet. It hospitalizes cadets from species with exoskeletons and redundant organs. Species that evolved on high-gravity death worlds. What do you think it will do to a human? I guess we're going to find out, Maya said. She walked away before they could argue further, heading toward her assigned quarters. Her hands were shaking, and fear sat heavy in her stomach. But underneath that fear was something stronger. Vexithor had said humans could not survive the drill. Maya was going to prove him wrong. Or die trying. 3 days passed too quickly. Maya spent every waking hour preparing her body and mind. She ate high-calorie meals, hydrated constantly, and studied everything she could find about the gauntlet. The information was limited. Most species considered the details classified, sharing them only with cadets who had earned the right to attempt it. Jake and Lisa tried one last time to talk her out of it the night before. They sat in the human quarters, a small section of the station set aside for Earth personnel. It's not too late to withdraw, Lisa said. No one would blame you. Vexithor would, Maya replied. And I'd blame myself. Jake shook his head. This isn't about proving something to an alien instructor. This is about survival. Everything is about proving something, Maya said quietly. That's why we're here at all. To prove humans belong in the galaxy. The morning of the gauntlet arrived cold and gray, at least according to the station's artificial day-night cycle. Maya put on the basic exosuit they provided, a thin layer of flexible armor that offered minimal protection. It had a helmet with a clear faceplate, oxygen recyclers, and a small emergency beacon on the chest. Press the beacon, and you would be teleported immediately to the medical bay. It also meant you failed. The deep chamber was enormous. Maya stood at the entrance and looked into a space the size of several football fields. The walls, floor, and ceiling were all made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Equipment and machinery lined the edges, ready to create whatever hell the instructors decided to throw at the cadets. 30 cadets entered the chamber with her. Vex Thor stood on an observation platform above, watching through reinforced glass. Other instructors and senior cadets filled the viewing area. Maya saw Jake and Lisa there too, their faces pale with worry. "The gauntlet begins now," Vex Thor's voice boomed through speakers. "You have 72 hours. Good luck." The first change was immediate. Maya felt weight slam into her body like a physical blow. The gravity increased, pulling her down with crushing force. Her knees buckled, and she nearly fell. Around her, other cadets adjusted to the change with varying degrees of success. A few barely seemed to notice. Maya forced herself to straighten up. Every movement felt like she was carrying another person on her back. Her heart pounded harder, working to pump blood through her body against the increased gravity. She took a step forward, then another. Each one was agony. A massive reptilian cadet named Krell moved past her easily. His species came from a high-gravity world. This was probably comfortable for him. He glanced at Maya as he passed, his yellow eyes unreadable. The first hour was the worst. Maya's body screamed in protest. Her bones ached deep inside. Her muscles burned, and her lungs struggled to pull in enough air. She watched as several cadets pressed their emergency beacons. White light flashed, and they disappeared, teleported to safety. She kept moving forward. The chamber had no clear path, just obstacles to navigate. She climbed over barriers, crawled under beams, and dragged herself up slopes. In normal gravity, it would have been easy. In this crushing weight, every action took 10 times the effort. By hour 6, half the cadets had withdrawn. Maya's vision started to blur. She tasted blood in her mouth and realized she had bitten her tongue. Small blood vessels in her eyes burst from the pressure, turning the whites pink. Vexus Thor increased the gravity again. Maya dropped to her hands and knees. The world spun around her. For a moment, she considered the emergency beacon. One press, and the pain would stop. One press, and she could breathe normally again. One press, and Vex Thor would be proven right. Her hand moved toward the beacon, then stopped. No. She started crawling instead. If she could not walk, she would crawl. If she could not crawl, she would drag herself with her arms. But she would not quit. The observers in the control room leaned forward. This was not normal. Cadets either adapted to the gravity or they withdrew. They did not continue when their bodies were clearly failing. Jake covered his face with his hands. Lisa stood rigid, watching every painful movement. Hour 12 brought the environmental changes. The temperature in the chamber dropped suddenly. Maya's breath fogged inside her helmet. The cold cut through her exosuit like knives. Her fingers started to go numb. She tucked them under her arms when she could, trying to keep them warm enough to function. Then, just as suddenly, the temperature spiked. Heat washed over her in waves. The inside of her helmet fogged up. Sweat poured down her face, and the recyclers struggled to keep up. She felt dizzy and sick. The atmosphere changed too. The oxygen level dropped, and other gases mixed in. Her suit's filters worked to clean the air, but she could smell something sharp and chemical. Her throat burned. She coughed, then vomited inside her helmet. The recyclers kicked into overdrive, cleaning up the mess, but the smell remained. More cadets withdrew. Even Krell, who had seemed so confident, was struggling now. The big reptilian moved slowly, his scales darkening with stress. Hour 24 arrived. Maya was alone in her section of the chamber. She had no idea where the other cadets were, or how many remained. Her world had narrowed to the next obstacle, the next breath, the next second of not pressing that emergency beacon. She hallucinated. Her mother appeared, telling her to come home. Her drill instructor from basic training yelled at her to get up. She saw her childhood dog running ahead, barking encouragement. None of it was real. But it kept her moving. Hour 36 came and went. The gravity increased again. Maya lay flat on the floor, unable to move. Her body had nothing left to give. She should have been unconscious. By every medical standard, she should have been dead. But humans evolved doing something most species never did. They chased prey for hours, sometimes days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. They walked across continents, climbed mountains, and crossed oceans in tiny boats. They survived when survival made no sense because they were too stubborn to understand that they should die. Maya's brain shut down the pain signals. It stopped listening to her body's desperate pleas to rest. It entered a state that scientists called flow and soldiers called being in the zone. Time stopped meaning anything. There was only forward. She moved like an animal, not thinking, just existing. Her hands found holds. Her legs pushed when they could. She crawled, rolled, and dragged herself forward. Somewhere far away, she heard alarms. She heard voices shouting. None of it mattered. In the control room, Vexthor stood motionless. His mandibles had stopped clicking. He watched this broken human refuse to break completely, and something shifted in his understanding of the galaxy. Hour 48 approached, and combat drones activated in the chamber. Maya heard their mechanical whirring and pulled herself to her feet through sheer force of will. Her legs should not have supported her weight, but they did. The first drone came at her with crackling electric batons. Maya could barely see it, but she did not need to see well. She just needed to survive. And surviving was the one thing humans did better than anyone expected. The combat drone moved fast, faster than Maya could track in her current state. She saw a blur of metal and the blue glow of electric batons. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. She threw herself sideways, hitting the ground hard. The baton crackled through the space where her head had been. Maya rolled, her training taking over where conscious thought had failed. The drone spun to face her, its sensors tracking her movement. It lunged again. This time, she could not dodge fast enough. The baton caught her shoulder, and electricity coursed through her body. Every muscle locked up. She fell, twitching, gasping for air. The drone moved in to finish the exercise. It raised both batons, preparing to deliver the final shock that would force her to press the emergency beacon. Maya's hand fumbled at her chest, fingers closing around something. Not the beacon, the drone's leg. She had grabbed it when she fell. With the last of her strength, Maya pulled. The drone was not expecting resistance from a target that should have been incapacitated. It stumbled, off balance. Maya used its own momentum against it, slamming it into the ground. Metal crunched. Sparks flew. The drone's leg joint bent at an unnatural angle. Maya pulled herself on top of the machine. Her vision was tunneled, everything going dark at the edges. She could barely think. But some ancient part of her brain understood that this thing was trying to hurt her, and she needed to stop it. She grabbed one of its batons and jammed it into the drone's central processor. It sparked once, twice, then went dark. In the control room, silence fell. An instructor, from the insectoid Vespid species, clicked his mandibles in disbelief. Another, a being made of crystalline structures, flickered with colors that indicated shock. She destroyed it, someone said. The drone was set to incapacitate mode, another added. It should have been impossible. Vexthor said nothing. His 4 eyes remained fixed on the human crawling away from the broken machine. She was not running. She was not even walking properly, but she was still moving forward. A second drone activated, then a third. The combat phase was designed to test tactical thinking under pressure, to see if cadets could defend themselves while exhausted. The drones would attack, the cadet would defend or evade, and eventually the cadet would either pass or withdraw. It was not designed for someone barely conscious to actually fight back. Maya saw the new drones coming. Some part of her understood she should be afraid. But fear required energy she did not have. Instead, she felt something colder. Her ancestors had been prey once, millions of years ago. Then they learned to make tools, to hunt, to fight back. That ancient knowledge lived in her genes, waiting for moments like this. She picked up a piece of the broken drone, a metal rod with a sharp edge. When the next drone came at her, she swung. The rod connected with its sensor array. The drone stumbled, blind. Maya hit it again, then again, beating it until it stopped moving. The third drone was smarter. It kept its distance, circling her. Maya swayed on her feet, barely upright. The drone waited for her to fall, but she did not fall. She stood there, breathing hard, holding her makeshift weapon. The standoff lasted 3 minutes. Finally, the drone attacked. Maya moved at the last second, and the drone crashed into a wall. She was on it instantly, tearing at its joints with her hands, pulling wires, breaking anything she could reach. 3 drones destroyed. The combat phase was supposed to last 6 hours. Maya had finished it in 40 minutes. Vexthor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. He pulled up Maya's vital signs on his display. Her heart rate was dangerously irregular. Her blood oxygen was far too low. Her body temperature fluctuated wildly. She should have been unconscious. She definitely should not have been capable of combat. Increase gravity to 4.8, Vexthor ordered. Sir, that exceeds safety parameters, an assistant said. Do it. The gravity increased again. Maya collapsed, crushed flat against the floor. She lay there, motionless, for nearly 10 minutes. The observers thought she had finally reached her limit. Then her arm moved. Then her other arm. She began crawling again, pulling herself forward with her fingers. Hour 50 passed, then hour 55. Maya entered territory no cadet had ever reached in the Gauntlet's 300-year history. The facility had run through all its program scenarios. The automated systems did not know what to do with a cadet who refused to stop. Vexthor took manual control. He began adjusting parameters himself, testing this human, trying to understand where her breaking point actually was. He dropped the temperature to -50 degrees. Maya kept moving. He raised it to 140. She slowed, but did not stop. He introduced toxic gases that should have forced her to withdraw within minutes. Her suit's filters struggled, but she kept breathing. By hour 60, other instructors had gathered in the control room. Word had spread across the station. Cadets from every year of training pressed against the viewing windows. They watched this small human drag herself through conditions that would kill most of them. Krell was there too, his arm in a regeneration cast. He had withdrawn at hour 38 when a drone shattered his bones. He stared at Maya with something that might have been respect, or horror, or both. Why does she not stop? Krell asked. Her body is broken. She has proven her point. Why continue? Because someone told her she could not, Jake said quietly. He stood with Lisa, both of them watching their fellow human with tears on their faces. You told humans what they cannot do. And now, you get to learn what happens next. Vexthor heard this. He looked at the human male, then back at Maya. She had reached a new obstacle, a wall she needed to climb. In her current state, it was impossible. She could not even stand properly. But she grabbed the wall anyway. Her fingers found holds. She pulled. She slipped and fell. She grabbed the wall again. For the first time in 40 years of teaching, Vexthor felt something he had not experienced since his own cadet days. Not anger or frustration, not even surprise anymore. He felt humbled. This weak, fragile creature was teaching him something about strength that his species had never understood. Strength was not about how much weight you could lift or how much damage you could absorb. Strength was about refusing to acknowledge that you had limits. It was about looking at the impossible and trying anyway. It was about being told you would fail and deciding that failure was not an option. Maya reached the top of the wall. She collapsed on the other side, lying still for so long that medical teams prepared to teleport in. Then, she stood up. Somehow, impossibly, she stood up. Hour 65 arrived. The gravity increased to 5.2. The temperature swung from freezing to boiling every 10 minutes. New drones activated, more aggressive than before. The atmosphere became barely breathable, even with filters. Maya faced it all. She fell more often now. Sometimes she lay still for minutes at a time. But she always got back up, always moved forward. Her body was destroying itself at the cellular level, but her mind had disconnected from physical reality. She was running on something the Crithians had no word for. Something that every human understood instinctively. The absolute refusal to let someone else define what they were capable of. Vexthor watched, his mandibles still, his 4 eyes unblinking. And slowly, he began to understand that he had made a terrible miscalculation. He had not underestimated this human strength. He had underestimated her stubbornness. And in the end, that made all the difference. Hour 70 arrived. Maya had been in the deep chamber for nearly 3 full days without rest, without real food, without anything but the basic life support her suit provided. Her body was a collection of broken parts, held together by will and the exosuit's structural support. But she was still moving. The final challenge appeared ahead. A simple corridor, maybe 10 meters long, leading to the extraction point. A glowing beacon marked the end. Under normal circumstances, this was the easy part. The victory lap after 70 hours of hell. For Maya, it might as well have been a mountain. She could not see the beacon anymore. Her eyes had hemorrhaged too badly, blood filling the space between her corneas and the surrounding tissue. Everything was a red blur. Her eardrums had ruptured hours ago from the pressure changes. The world was silent, except for the pounding of her own heart, which she felt more than heard. Her legs were broken. She knew this even though she could not feel them anymore. The suit's support structure kept them straight, turned them into rigid posts she could lean on. But the bones inside were fractured in multiple places. Each step sent fragments, grinding against each other. Maya took one step, then stopped, then another step. She moved like someone learning to walk for the first time. Every movement requiring complete focus and effort. The 10-meter corridor stretched before her like an endless tunnel. In the control room, nobody spoke. The gathered crowd of cadets, instructors, and officers watched in complete silence. Some had been there for hours, refusing to leave. Others had just arrived after hearing the news spreading across the station. Even aliens from species that had no concept of emotional investment found themselves unable to look away. Jake had his hands pressed against the viewing glass. Lisa stood beside him, her face wet with tears that kept coming. No matter how many times she wiped them away. They were watching their species being redefined in real time. Vexthor stood at his control panel, his hands hovering over the emergency override. One press, and he could end this. He could teleport Maya to medical, save her life, prevent whatever permanent damage she was doing to herself. His fingers moved toward the button multiple times. Each time, he stopped. To pull her out now would be more insulting than anything he had said 3 days ago. She had earned the right to finish or fail on her own terms. Maya took another step. Her foot did not land quite right, and she fell. The impact should have hurt, but she felt nothing. She lay on the floor of the corridor, face down, her breath fogging the inside of her helmet. For 30 seconds, she did not move. "Get up," Jake whispered, though he knew she could not hear him. "Please get up." Maya's hand moved. It scraped against the floor, fingers finding purchase. She pushed. Her body rose slightly, then fell again. She pushed again. This time she made it to her knees. Then, impossibly, to her feet. 5 meters left. She could not see the beacon, but she knew it was there. She could feel it somehow, the way an animal might sense water or home. She took another step, then another. The world narrowed to this simple action. Step, breathe. Step, breathe. Nothing else existed. Hour 71. Maya's hand touched something solid. The extraction beacon. Her fingers wrapped around it, and the timer stopped. 71 hours. 43 seconds. The gauntlet of attrition was complete. Alarms blared. The gravity immediately dropped to normal. The temperature stabilized. The atmospheric processors flooded the chamber with clean, breathable air. Medical teams rushed toward the entrance, prepared to teleport in and extract the surviving cadet. But before they could reach her, Maya did something that would be talked about across the galaxy for years to come. She straightened up. Her broken legs locked into place, held by the suit and by will. She reached up with shaking hands and unlatched her helmet. The seals hissed as they released, and she pulled the helmet off. Her face was a horror. Blood covered most of it, dried and fresh mixing together. Her eyes were swollen, nearly shut, the whites completely red from burst vessels. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. Her hair was matted with sweat and blood. She looked like someone who had died and refused to accept it. Maya turned toward the observation window. She could not see it clearly, but she knew where it was. She knew Vex's Thor was standing there, watching. She wanted him to see her face. Wanted him to understand what it meant when you told a human they could not do something. And then she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator that had just killed its prey. It was the smile of someone who had walked through hell because someone told them they would not make it. It was the smile of absolute victory mixed with a hint of madness. The control room erupted. Aliens made sounds of approval, shock, and amazement in dozens of different languages. Cadets who had withdrawn from the gauntlet hung their heads, both ashamed and awed. Senior officers exchanged glances, already calculating what this meant for human integration into galactic military forces. Jake and Lisa grabbed each other, laughing and crying at the same time. Their fellow human had done the impossible. She had proven that humans belonged here, that they could compete with species that evolution had built stronger and tougher. Vex Thor stared at that bloody smile and felt something shift deep in his understanding of the universe. He had spent 40 years teaching warriors. He knew strength when he saw it. He knew courage. He knew determination. But this was something else entirely. This was the refusal to acknowledge reality when reality said, "You should quit." Medical teams teleported into the chamber and surrounded Maya. She collapsed into their arms, finally allowing her body to shut down. They loaded her onto an emergency stretcher, their instruments flashing with urgent readouts. Her vital signs were catastrophic. They rushed her to the medical bay, already preparing regeneration tanks and emergency surgery. The deep chamber emptied slowly. Cadets left in groups, talking quietly among themselves. Instructors filed out, making notes and discussing protocol changes. The gauntlet had been completed, and everything about it would need to be reevaluated now that a human had survived it. Vex Thor remained alone in the control room for a long time. He replayed sections of the footage, studying Maya's movements, trying to understand what he had witnessed. She had not survived because she was strong. She survived because she did not know how to quit. Or perhaps she knew how, and simply chose not to. He thought about his species, the Crithians, who prided themselves on their warrior culture. They were strong, resilient, and trained from birth to endure hardship. But they also knew their limits. They understood when to stop, when to withdraw, when to accept defeat. It was logical. It was smart. It kept them alive. Humans apparently did not have this logic. They looked at their limits and decided those limits were suggestions rather than rules. They died more easily than most species. But they also pushed further before dying. It was inefficient. It was dangerous. It was terrifying. And it was effective. Vexthor turned off the displays and left the control room. He had 3 days before Maya would be released from medical. 3 days to figure out what to say to her. 3 days to understand that everything he thought he knew about strength had just been challenged by a species he had dismissed as weak. The station's gossip networks were already buzzing with the story. By morning, every being on Epsilon 7 would know that a human had completed the gauntlet. By the end of the week, the story would spread to other stations, other worlds. The small, fragile humans from Earth had just announced themselves to the galaxy in the loudest way possible. They could survive anything, even when they should not be able to. Especially when someone told them they could not. Maya woke up 3 days later in a regeneration tank. The liquid around her was warm and thick, filled with medical nanobots that worked to repair her damaged body. Through the transparent walls, she could see doctors moving around, checking monitors, and talking in low voices. Some were human, but most were alien species she had never seen before. When they finally drained the tank and helped her out, Maya was surprised she could walk at all. Her legs still ached deep in the bones, and her vision was blurry. But she was alive and mostly functional. The doctors said she was lucky. Her human body had healing abilities they had not expected, redundant systems, and adaptability that surprised them. "You should rest for another week," the head doctor said. He was a tall being with gray skin and too many fingers. "Your body has been through extreme trauma." "I feel fine," Maya lied. She did not feel fine, but she felt well enough to walk, and that was all that mattered. They released her with strict instructions to take it easy. Maya ignored most of them. She limped through the station corridors, and everywhere she went, cadets stopped to stare. Some nodded in respect. Others touched their fists to their chests, a universal military gesture of acknowledgement. A few of the younger ones asked to take photos with her. Jake and Lisa found her in the cafeteria, trying to eat solid food for the first time in days. "You're famous," Jake said, sitting down across from her. "Every news feed in the galaxy is talking about you, the human who survived the gauntlet. They're calling it the Brooks Protocol in the human databases," Lisa added. "You changed everything, Maya. Command is already talking about sending more humans to train here." Maya nodded slowly, taking another bite of food. It tasted like cardboard, but her body needed the calories. "Has Vexthor said anything?" Lisa and Jake exchanged glances. "He's been quiet," Lisa said. "Nobody has seen him much since you finished. Some cadets say he's been reviewing the footage over and over." 2 days after her release from medical, Maya received a message on her personal communicator. It was short and direct. "Report to Training Floor 7. Come alone." It was signed by Vexthor. Maya's stomach tightened. She knew this meeting was coming, but she did not know what to expect. An apology? Another challenge? A formal acknowledgement of her completion? With Vexthor, anything was possible. She arrived at Training Floor 7 to find it empty except for the commander. He stood in the center of the combat ring, the same place where this had all started. His blue armor gleamed under the harsh lights. All 4 of his eyes focused on her as she approached. "You should not have survived." Vex Thor said without greeting or preamble. His translator clicked, giving his words a mechanical quality. I have trained warriors for 40 years. I have seen the strong succeed and the weak fail. You were weak, Lieutenant Brooks. By every measure, you were the weakest cadet in your group. Maya said nothing. She simply stood there, meeting his gaze with steady eyes. But you did not break. Vex Thor continued. He moved closer, his footsteps heavy on the mat. This troubles me. It confuses me. I need to understand how something so fragile could endure so much. Understand what? Maya asked. Her voice was still rough from all the screaming she had done in the chamber. If human weakness is real, or if it is an illusion. Vex Thor moved without warning. His species was known for their speed, and he used it now. He swept at her legs, a standard training move meant to test reactions and balance. It was not an attack meant to hurt, just a challenge, the kind instructors gave to students all the time. But Maya's body was not back to normal. Her reflexes were still running on survival instinct from 72 hours of fighting for her life. Her brain did not register training exercise. It only registered threat. As she fell, her hand shot out automatically and caught Vex Thor's primary arm joint. Her momentum, combined with his strength, in a way neither of them anticipated. She twisted as she went down, using his own force against him. There was a sound like breaking ceramic, sharp and final. Vex Thor's exoskeleton, the armor that was part of his actual body, cracked along a stress line. The crack ran from his shoulder down through his spine structure. He crashed to the mat, his body rigid with shock and pain. Alarms shrieked immediately. The training floor's medical sensors detected the injury and sent emergency signals. Medical teams would arrive in seconds. Maya scrambled to her feet, horror washing over her. I'm sorry, she said quickly, reaching toward him. I didn't mean to. I just reacted. I'm so sorry. Vex Thor lay on the mat, his 4 eyes blinking slowly. Pain receptors fired throughout his body in ways Crithians rarely experienced. Their exoskeletons were incredibly strong, designed to withstand plasma weapons and kinetic strikes. They did not break easily, but decades of combat and training had weakened his armor in places he had not known about. And Maya had found one of those places purely by accident. Medical teams rushed in, surrounding the commander with scanners and equipment. They loaded him carefully onto a floating stretcher, supporting his damaged spine. As they prepared to take him away, Vex Thor's eyes found Maya. And then, incredibly, his mandibles clicked in the pattern that Crithians used for laughter. Now I understand, he said, his translator glitching from his damaged vocal systems. Humans do not survive because they are strong. They survive because they do not know when to stop. And everyone else must stop eventually. They carried him away to medical, leaving Maya standing alone in the combat ring. Other instructors arrived within minutes. She had to give a statement, explain what happened, justify her actions. There would be an inquiry, they said. Possibly disciplinary action. Attacking an instructor, even accidentally, was serious. But when the inquiry board convened 3 days later, Vex Thor testified from his regeneration tank. He told them it was a training accident caused by his own miscalculation. He insisted Maya had done nothing wrong. And then, he made a request that shocked everyone present. He wanted Maya to continue as his student when he recovered. The board members, representing 5 different species, looked at each other in confusion. Why would you want to train someone who broke your spine? One asked. Vex Thor's response was recorded in the official report. Because I spent 40 years teaching students to recognize their limits. Now I need to learn how to teach someone who does not have any. The story spread even faster than the gauntlet completion. A human, barely recovered from the most brutal training exercise in known space, had broken her instructor's spine. The details mattered less than what it represented. Humans were no longer the weak species that needed protection. They were the species you did not challenge lightly. 8 months later, Maya Brooks graduated top of her class from the Galactic Military Academy. She was the first human to achieve this honor. Vex Thor, fully recovered, stood on the stage during the ceremony and personally presented her with the insignia of command. Her first assignment was leading a joint species strike force, combining soldiers from across the galaxy. Vex Thor accepted a position as her senior advisor, a role that raised eyebrows throughout the military establishment. A legendary Krithian warrior serving under a human commander was unheard of. On their first day reviewing the new unit roster, Vex Thor noticed something that made his mandibles click with what might have been amusement or concern. "There are 15 new human applications to the Academy," he said, looking at his datapad. "All of them cite your example as their reason for applying." Maya looked up from her own reports and smiled. It was not the bloody, half-mad smile she had given him through the observation window. This was something warmer, but with an edge of mischief. "Your species will need to get used to having us around." "Your species will be trouble," Vex Thor said, but there was respect in his voice now. "We've been trying to tell you that," Maya replied. Later that day, a new notation appeared in the Galactic Military Academy's official human assessment protocols. It was simple, direct, and would influence alien interactions with humans for generations to come. Recommended approach when dealing with human personnel. Do not tell them they cannot do something. They will take it as a challenge and prove you wrong, regardless of personal cost or physical limitations. Plan accordingly. Maya Brooks had come to the Academy to prove humans belonged in the galaxy. She had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. And she had done it the way humans always did, by refusing to quit when everyone said she should. The galaxy was learning what Earth had always known. Humans were not the strongest species, or the toughest, or the most advanced, but they were the most stubborn. And in the end, that made all the difference. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Sonnet 4.5.